Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Secret Life of. I'm Liz.
And I'm Lindsay, and this is your weekly listen about friendship, creativity, entrepreneurship, and the simple joys in life. Hi. Do we start every episode the same way?
I don't know. Here we are.
Here we are, talking
time.
about cycle breaking.
That's right.
What is it, Liz?
Cycle breaking. The definition, a la Liz. Ending the madness.
Yes.
I don't know. Like when I think about cycle breaking, I think a lot about how you grew up and things that shaped you that you don't necessarily want to continue on with in adulthood. Oftentimes when we're teenagers, we don't even know we're really in a cycle yet. It's not until you hit like your late 20s, maybe early 30s, where you're like, I can change things. Interesting. You learn what unlearning actually means.
Yeah.
And yeah, like if you're anything like us, you start seeing a therapist and you're just in a world of self-exploration and a coming of age, if you will. And you really learn what are like the unhealthy habits you've developed. And a lot of times it's because, and this isn't to bash our families or in general, any family, it's just a part of life, honestly. I'm sure Oliver one day is going to wake up and be like, what in the world? Someone get me to a therapist. My parents did me wrong, even though we had the best of intentions. So yeah, I think it's just learning what those cycles are that come from like generational trauma or just maybe it's not even associated with trauma. Maybe it's just the way that generation did things. And so now you're needing to you want to change things. You want things to be different. And so you have to break that cycle so that you don't bring it into your family or your relationships or your friendships.
Yeah. Cause thinking back to where my grandparents came from, they grew up on a farm in rural Montana and had 27 siblings. And there was no time for, holding of emotions for every single child. And
no.
Yeah. So things change. And very often people tend to raise their children very similarly to the way that they were raised. And there is a lot that I've gained from the way that I was parented. And my parents are absolutely wonderful grandparents. But I think every generation has things that they would change.
Yeah. And what I think is really fascinating is, so I was talking to my mom the other day and man, my parents' generation really, I feel like as millennials, we're like, what the fuck? Everything's fucked. And we got the shit end of the stick and that kind of thing. But every generation feels that in their own way. And my mom and dad have told me, and again, I think there's a cultural difference here too. So I can't really speak to baby boomers in America. I can only speak to boomers in Colombia, maybe particularly South America in general. But they say that there's this saying that my mom and dad say, which I'm going to roughly translate to, we raised ourselves because we had to. My grandmother's generation, they had a lot of kids. They were not going to the pharmacy picking up their birth control. Okay.
Nope.
And my grandma had 8 children and adopted a 9th. What? I have so many aunts and uncles and cousins. It's insane. Just on my mom's side. So I'm having a hard time with one, just juggling everything, and I can't even imagine. And so you kind of raised yourself. There was a lot of it was the norm. It was the norm to have a lot of kids and not pay them a lot of attention and just fend for yourselves and go to ballet class by yourself. No one's coming to the recital. Who has time when you have 7 other children? And I look at my parents and the way they were cycle breaking was we're only having 2 children and we will be super involved in their lives. So
yep.
It's I guess that's just an example of cycle breaking. And my mom had never really felt seen. That was a generation being raised of kids are seen, not heard. And, I could go deep into that too. But anyways, so that's, I think what we really wanted to talk about today is what are the cycles we want to break and maybe help inspire others to think about that for themselves.
Yeah. Think bigger and I mean, it can be an uncomfortable process. And at least there's like a much heavier side of this where like maybe you come from a family with a past of addiction or physical abuse or, that like, and that's a lot to overcome. But it is like making the choice to do something different. And you may not like actually complete the breaking of the cycle, but you're like making small steps so that as you continue forward, you're helping the next generation. Whether or not you have kids, like,
oh yeah,
I think just having influence on the younger generation as a whole,
Totally. What's like something that you want to break, Linz, that you've noticed in your life you want to change?
Well, okay. So I came up with a few things that they still rear their head in my life, but I have gotten a lot better about it. But things are definitely popping up more now that I'm a bit more stressed with having a kid and just like lack of time. I can sometimes get a bit feral, I guess is the right word.
This is so juicy. Like, break it down. What do you mean?
like I'm just a little bit more reactionary, like,
oh, okay.
Like you just don't, when you're in this chapter of life, you don't have a lot of time to like I don't have 2 hours in a day to like completely disconnect and do my own thing. Like, right. So,
girl,
yeah, I have had to learn to regulate myself very quickly and like check myself. So things that I have really had to overcome and passive aggressiveness and like silent treatment.
Ooh, juicy.
Yeah.
Love it. Were you somebody who did that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow. I don't know that version of Lindsay.
Yeah. But I didn't know what I was doing.
Totally.
Like,
yeah, not until you hit your late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah. yeah. Until people I wrote down like I didn't even know how to identify that within myself. Like it took having like a blunt friend or a blunt family member to be like, what are you thinking right now? Like you need to say something. Like like calling me out on my shit.
Love it.
And yeah, it's like a hard pill to swallow at first. But then the next step is like the self-reflection and the what could I have done better in that moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the self-awareness lens. Gosh, I'm going to say a trigger word. We hear it so much now in life because we didn't have this terminology when we were growing up, but gaslighting.
Yeah. yeah.
Oh man. I did not know what this meant, honestly, until I was about 35 years old. That's a long time. I didn't know what that meant. And I didn't really realize how much of my life that happened to me and how even, oh my gosh, even furthermore, how much I did that to others.
Yeah.
I had no idea that's what I was doing. And it took me a long time to be really understand the definition of gaslighting, Like what the hell does that mean? And it wasn't until I started going to therapy, I met like the friends I have now, I met Zach, like all of these things kind of just fell into place and really taught me being dismissive of feelings is really like the best way we can define gaslighting. Yeah. And if you're still learning about that and you're still kind of figuring that out, like I really urge you to take a conscious effort on how you're like talking to your friends, how you're talking to your partner, anybody in your life, because you can even gaslight yourself. And I definitely realized in the past how dismissive I was being. Not just like, for example, someone would be like, I'm really sad about this. It's not like I would be like, don't be sad. That's ridiculous. It wasn't that so much. It was more like, I feel like I didn't have as much patience as I do now for like my relationships, where I'd be like, oh my God, can we just like figure this out already? And I would come across as very dismissive, and that is not okay. Especially when like someone's doing that to me, I'm not I hate that. And that's super triggering for me for a lot of reasons. But it's really helped me. I've really learned how to like, you've actually told me this, Lindsay, which I felt like such a moment of pride when you said this to me. I don't think I told you this, but when you say things like you're so good at like letting people down gently. And I was like, oh, shit, I did some work because I didn't always know how to do that. I think I would try to be honest and I would come out as very blunt and like not very gentle, and it would come off as very dismissive.
Yeah.
And it's a life skill, it's a social skill to know how to like really validate someone's feelings without having to like agree with them or necessarily or give into what they need or what they're asking of you if that's not something that aligns with you. So, yeah, I think I'm really trying to break that cycle for sure. And not to talk about Oliver every 5 seconds, but it's like, I want that for my son for sure. Like, I really don't want him to grow up one day and feel like he had a dismissive, gaslighting mother. I want people in my life to feel really heard and never feel like I'm gaslighting them, never making them feel like what they feel is wrong or that their experience was made up or that, you know what I mean? Or that like, I don't want to ever tell someone that's not what actually happened because they're trying to tell me their experience and that's theirs. And I can't take that away from them.
There was one thing that our marriage therapist said that I think like aggravated Ian so much. And like it does sound kind of crazy to me, but he came up with this like very black and white example of like, okay, Ian, like you say the sky is blue, but Lindsay says the sky is green. The point of this conversation is not to convince Lindsay that the sky is blue. It's to be like, yeah, babe, I understand that you think the sky is blue and I validate that. And it's
I love it.
Yeah. And so that really, and he was like, but the sky is blue.
The word that she used that really stuck out to me is convincing. Because so much of gaslighting comes from this place that a person is trying to convince you feel a certain way. This thing happened this way.
Yeah.
And it's like, we got to give it up. Let it go. Give it fucking up. Like, it's not about you.
Yeah.
Validate. Like, I think sometimes too, people are confused about validation. Like, why do we have to just keep telling everybody they're right? And it's like, that's not necessarily what we're doing here.
No.
We're just saying how you're feeling is okay. Like what you feel is okay. The fact that you have this feeling is fine. You're not saying like that you're right about everything. We're talking about emotions.
Yes.
We're not trying to convince someone that the way you feel is wrong. You should be feeling this way. Let me convince you of that. It's complicated. And like, it definitely took me a while to like really hone in on that. And obviously still a work in progress, but like I really work on that in my marriage. I've also learned how to identify much more easily when someone's gaslighting me because I had such a hard time with that. It's hard. It feels like a trick.
Yeah.
It's not till in retrospect where you're like, wait a minute, were they gaslighting me? What the hell? And so I think, yeah, it's a skill. It's just, you got to hone in. I'm trying to hone that skill more and more each day. So definitely breaking that cycle.
And a huge part of that, I think, is building your self-esteem and your self-confidence to be confident in the way that you feel or the way that you know that things happened. Because I can usually tell that I'm being gaslit based on like the emotion I'm feeling. I may not have the logical words to be able to say to that person, like, no, this is the way that this happened. Like, I don't have the energy to argue with them in that moment, but I do have the energy to be like, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to circle back to this and then go and collect my thoughts and be like, hey, like, and also knowing that, like, I feel like gaslighting too, as you mentioned, has become like such a trigger word in our society. Like, it can almost be like that person is evil because they're gaslighting me. Like, most of the time, gaslighters don't know what they're doing. They're just trying, it's like a form of self-protection. They want you to come and be with them in their world so that they feel safe and like they don't have to come and meet you anywhere.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. It's very manipulative, but a lot of people don't even know they're doing that,
Yep.
you know? So yeah, it's tricky.
One thing that I don't think that I have broken the cycle for myself. I don't think that I ever will, but I am working on the way that I am breaking it for Opal, which is like chronic dieting and criticizing my body.
That's a
So I
great one,
grew up
Linz.
with like the magnet on my fridge growing up that said, what's that? Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels.
Oh,
That, yeah. Or
I
just
hate that.
like women in my life just constantly hiding their bodies, or the first thing that was said when a bathing suit was put on was just like, oh, I'm so fat, or like I used to be so skinny and then I had kids. I really take stock of the way that I talk about my body around Opal.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I think that's wonderful, Lindsay.
and also, yeah, not like blaming my stretch marks on Opal. Like,
Exactly.
yes, I had a baby and yes, I got stretch marks, but like, I don't know. I grew up like thinking that like that was my fault.
I hate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. It really, God, just like the modeled behavior is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great cycle to break, Linz. And I love that you're being so conscious of that.
Focusing more on like being strong and being physically active around her without it being attached to like, oh, mommy's working out because she needs to lose weight. Like, I don't ever want it to be attached to that. And I'm already pretty on top of like anybody in my family being like, oh, like she's kind of thinning out or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, she's 4. She's
Can we
getting
not?
taller. Like I just don't even want those words to be said around her.
I agree. I mean, I have a boy and I feel that way about him too. Like, I don't want my family, talking about his body or his any sort of body part. I don't want anyone like honing in on like stuff like that. I don't want to
Yeah.
give my kid a complex, I want him to just feel free and not like so self-aware of himself around family or anybody, like in
Yeah.
an unhealthy way.
Yeah. Or feel like a more superior person because you're skinnier, or for men
Exactly.
because you're stronger and more muscular,
Totally.
like
Yeah,
taller.
absolutely. The next one I have is not allowing anyone to hold me back based on their own fears for themselves, which then project onto me. And that is something that, man, I really wish I would have figured out way earlier in life. But, it's kind of like when we had Michelle on 2 episodes ago. She was talking about, she really wanted to become a makeup artist, and she really allowed, which when we're young and susceptible, like, or impressionable, I should say, that's what happens, right? We let our family's voices creep in, or friends or anybody, and like we start to believe them. And I think like later on in my adulthood, I've realized like how much I used to let that affect me, how much I let that rule my life, control my life. And I'm really trying to break that cycle. So being really protective of like sharing my dreams and like my goals. I don't just like spit them out to anyone anymore. I'm just more protective and selective on who I voice those things to, and really just staying confident in like, I'm going to get there. I want to do this. I'm going to make it happen, and not allowing anyone to tell me that I can't, or that's not a real that's a pipe dream. Even my own husband, anybody who, it's like people really, even if they don't mean to, they really project their own emotions and fears onto you. And so you have to, in my opinion, you have to be careful about like who you're talking to when it comes to this topic.
Especially if it's like a big endeavor or a big dream you have, like probably not best to tell the person that has told you that you can't do it your whole life.
I mean, I definitely did not pursue photography. I talked about this in like our first episode, for a really long time as like a business, because I was told, girl, you need a 401k, you need security, you need stability. This is not a real thing. Like, unfortunately, the arts are not looked at as, they don't have the same respect that like becoming a lawyer does, for example. So yeah, I really want to like break that cycle with my own child and just like for me in general and how I live my life. So hey guys, you may have noticed that we are not sponsored on our podcast. We don't make any money doing this, but we love it and would love to keep creating episodes for you. In order to do that, it would greatly help us if you would leave a review. There's nothing that helps us grow more than your thoughtful words. So we appreciate you so much and want the world to see what you think about our podcast.
On Apple, you can go to our show's page, scroll past the episodes and click write a review. And on Spotify, go to our show's page, click the 3 dots and click rate show. Thank you.
Thank you. What about you? What's another one?
It kind of is in line with being passive aggressive, like a bit, because like for me, these went hand in hand, but playing the victim. Like I broke this one pretty early because people just like got fed up with it.
Okay.
But it was very much like, yeah, like if anything happened that was bad, it was just like, I could never just like shrug it off. It was just like, well, that's just the way it is because that's me. And like, I always seem to like get the short end of the stick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But what I really think it was like playing the victim. Not only, I don't think I really did it for attention, but I did it as a way to not have the courage to change my situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like it put the ownership on somebody else for making me feel the way I did.
But do you think when that was happening, you actually knew that that's what's going on? Or do you realize that's what you were doing in hindsight?
I think I knew in the moment too, but I don't think I could put a word to it. I knew that it felt good, but wrong at the same time. It was like, I knew there was an alternative, but I hadn't learned what that alternative was.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of Lindsay growth that needed to happen. Little Lindsay. I feel like that is the little kid in us. Like when we're acting like stuff, we're doing things like that. That's like our little kid inside who's just lost and doesn't know what to do. Hi, this is a therapy session in case anyone wanted to know.
Opal's been doing this thing lately where like she'll get in like the slightest bit of trouble and then run to her room and be like, I guess nobody loves me. And I'm like, I literally just told you I loved you 5 minutes ago.
Oh my God. I don't know if you've said that, but that is adorable.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, baby. Opal. But she's doing it to like, yeah. And I'm like,
yep.
Opal, you still like, you just hit me. So
okay. Yeah. What in the world? Oh my gosh, these children. Okay. So my last one is I want to stop holding back in relationships or potential opportunities for fear that they'll disappoint me.
Oh.
I think I've come so far in this and I definitely I've reached a place of embrace. Like I just embrace the people. I embrace opportunities. There is that little voice in me though, for sure, a lot that is trying to fight back on that. It's like, beware, beware, beware. I feel like there's this little thing in the back of my mind that's like trying not to trust. Like it's trying to convince me to not trust that this will work out, that this friend will not hurt me or whatever, because when I was young, I was definitely I was just taught that you need to be careful with everyone because you really just can't trust anybody and people are going to disappoint you. And it's really unfortunate. And what I learned later on was that first of all, if you want to have good friends, then you have to be a good friend. Mm-hmm. You don't just all of a sudden have good friends and then become a good friend. Like you gotta no one's gonna want to be your friend if you're just the worst. Part of that was trusting people so they could trust me too. I think that's a cycle I've definitely broken for sure. I feel like I have become a master, at least for myself, on judge of character and knowing who my people are. Like I can spot a person I want to be close friends with within minutes. That was definitely hard for me. I just would try to be friends with everyone when I was young. So that's definitely a huge learning curve that I went through. And as far as opportunities, yeah, it's definitely I think bordering an imposter syndrome vibe where it's I don't want to trust that this is actually going to work out. I don't know if I can do it. It's just always fear that it's not going to work. And it just, I feel like those things all go hand in hand. And I really, really am constantly trying to implement trust, not to be super woo woo, but it's trust in the universe and trust in myself and accept and surrender to the fact that, yeah, some things are not going to work out. I will survive. And maybe some friendships aren't going to work out in the end, or maybe that person will betray you. Okay, fine. I can't go on I can't just live my life worrying about that, because what happens is that you stay really stagnant. Nothing ever happens because you don't take chances on anyone or anything. So,
well said. I do want to talk. I mean, I'm sure there are more.
We could go on forever.
We could go on forever. I mean, but I think I do want to talk about I think the first step in okay, so you want a cycle break. Here's a how-to.
Step one.
But literally, the first step is identifying them and putting words to them. So as I mentioned before, it was for me, it was having some really blunt friends, people that were really honest with me about my behavior or things that I maybe didn't realize I was doing.
Yeah.
I
love that.
And yeah. And actually surrendering your pride in that moment, because it hurts. It hurts to hear that oh, I've been doing this thing that's been annoying people or making people mad for a while. But then you have to do the work to overcome that.
Yeah.
And that can be as easy as just asking that person hey, I'm sorry that I was doing that. Can you help me understand what I can do differently?
I love that. I really think too, it takes a level of maturity to even be able to say that. Because I think back to my early 20s, there was never a world where I was going to sit down with a friend and be I'm really sorry that I've been doing this, and just completely tell them I was wrong and that I want to change things. So I think that's just the process of breaking cycles. It's life experience and having the maturity and self-awareness where you're not everything is about me, not everything is about me. And I need to take ownership of what I'm bringing to the table here. Or not bringing to the table. So I think that's great. I think, self-awareness is also a skill we all need to hone in on.
It is a delicate balance. It's I've gone through periods where I've been too self-aware to the point where I'm just frozen in fear of moving forward. And then I've gone through phases where I am not self-aware at all and unintentionally hurting people or, not handling situations well.
Yeah. So I think identifying for sure is step one. And then I think, do you have a step two? Because I have a step two.
Go for it.
Okay.
I don't have a step two.
Okay, great.
Have fun, everyone. Go for it. Cycle break.
I think step two is owning it, owning your shit, and what that looks like can be different, I guess, for everybody, but owning that you do these things and accepting that as your own and then looking for ways to change them. And that's all a lot of that is a lot of self-work. And it takes a minute, but it is important, I think vital to have a healthy life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's like another cycle that I've had to work on too, is like just defensiveness. Like
Mm-hmm.
my
This is
first
so
reaction.
fascinating.
Yeah.
I don't know this version of you. Like you're saying all these things, Lindsay, and I'm like, who is this person? I don't know her.
I've grown so
So
much.
much growth.
I'm sure if there are past people in my life that are listening to this episode, I doubt it. But yeah, they're probably like, yeah, I remember that.
Mm, yeah. Dude, God, it's so crazy to think back to our like little baby selves. I was such a pushover. I was so many things. And now I want to hold her and be like, girl, we need to chat.
Yeah, like have some self respect. Like,
Yes. The things I would tolerate, the things I just, yeah. My behavior too was like, no, I was like gaslighting everyone left and right. What the hell? I mean, yeah, just a hot mess. And I think I'm really proud of us for coming so far. And obviously, we have a lot of work to still do, as we all do. But I hope that this episode shine some light on identifying cycles you want to break and how to do that.
yeah. And if you're feeling stuck, like therapy is incredible.
I can't wait to get back to therapy because we don't really have, to be honest, we don't have it in our budget right now because we have so many expenses and Seattle is expensive. We have a baby, blah, blah, blah. But it's something I look forward to all the time. And it's just the most helpful thing.
Yeah. I mean, just identifying the little version of yourself, because so many of our wounds are from childhood, and yeah,
Amen.
just giving that part of ourselves space.
So, Linz, what's making you happy?
What's making me happy is, and I know it's like at the end of the summer, I'm going to be like, what's making me happy is the wedding season is over. But right now, I'm getting excited for the upcoming wedding season because I am out of burnout. And yeah, I'm just talking to some really cool couples, and weddings are getting on the books. So yeah, I've got one at the Seattle Art Museum, which is going to be amazing. One up in the San Juan Islands. It's just, you never know what the season is going to bring until the inquiries start coming in and you start booking. And so yeah, I'm very excited for everything to come and the couples that I'm working with.
Cool. The Seattle Art Museum, that's going to be that's so Sex in the City. It feels
I
like,
know.
you know how she was going to get married in a library?
Yeah.
It feels like the same vibe to me. That's going to be so beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't
I'm
even know
excited to
they did
shoot
weddings
there.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they don't allow like professional photography on, I think it was the third floor, which is like the portrait gallery, or like where a lot of like their really old paintings are, but they do allow phone photography. So the couple wants me to do like iPhone photos up there,
How
which I think
fun.
is going to be really interesting, and like a kind of a creative. I love putting boundaries around like
The
creative
assignment.
work, the
Yep.
assignment.
It's the
Yeah.
assignment. Yep.
Yeah. You need an assignment. And so I
I
think
love this. You
it's,
could get so artsy.
I know. I'm
Like you could even
excited.
play with like gradients or something fun or
Yeah.
filters. I don't know. Like I think it could be fun.
Yeah. I'm
Oh
excited.
my gosh, I can't wait to see that.
Okay. What's making you happy?
What's making me happy is that I just got home from Oakland seeing friends. And it was just so nice to, I don't know, there's just something about going back to California and like seeing, I don't know, being around your roots, being around the people that made you.
Yeah.
You know, one friend in particular, I've known him since I was 15 and he's 43 and I'm 42 now. So that's a really wild thing to think about. So we literally grew up together and it's just like always so fun to see each other and sing in the car and, you know, like catch up on where all my friends that moved up to the Bay from LA are living and like what's going on in their lives. And I don't know, it was cold because it's quote winter, but it was sunny and it was just so lovely to like go to brunch and I don't know. It was, and like my friends, Matt and Elise have a 4-year-old and it was just so nice to like spend time with their kid. Cause like he's 4 now And I haven't really gotten to spend a lot of time with him since I live here. So it was just like amazing to be called Auntie Liz all weekend. I was like, what? Oh my God. It was just like really special to be mommying together and just like seeing friends. So I just got home and I feel like I'm still on the high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how special it is to have been able to maintain friendships for that long. Like
it really is. It feels like a feat.
it's
because
rare.
what? It's so rare. I've known them 20 plus years at this point. And Eddie, I've known literally since I was 15 years old. I mean, that's insane. I've known him more than I haven't in my life.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really wild thing to think about. And I feel very proud of that.
That's amazing.
We've lived different places and different cities and I don't know. And we've managed to stay just as close. It's like no time has passed each time. I don't know. It's very special. So, yeah. It's making me happy. Well, I love you. I'm proud of who you are.
Too.
And
oh my God.
I'm proud of you. Thank you. I'm confident that we can tell each other when we're being wild.
Uh-huh.
So that's great.
But I'm perfect and I do no wrong.
But that's never happened. So
that's never happened. Amazing.
Okay.
I love you so much.
I love you. Bye, boo.
Bye. That's a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
You can find the show notes at thesecretlifeofpod.com/episodes.
We would love for you to follow us on Instagram at The Secret Life of Pod, where we share lots of updates and personal musings.
Please subscribe, rate, and review. We read all of your feedback and it helps us grow.
If you have comments or ideas for future episodes, you can email us at hello@thesecretlifeofpod.com.
Okay, bye.
Bye.